Welcome to another segment of our Legacy series. And thank you to our viewers who have joined us on our online social media discussions this week. They have been so good, Delia.
You know, that comment Shala made, fantastic. Thank you, Shala, for joining us.
It's awesome when we get to converse and communicate with you. You know, Delia, there was a statistic. It's on sounddivision.com. And man, these statistics are astonishing. According to soundvision.com, do you know that 2.3 million couples wed every year in the U.S.?
That's a lot of flowers.
Yes, that's a whole lot of I-dos, right?
For sure.
Man, you know what? That actually breaks down to 6,200 weddings per day. Wow.
I can't even imagine the stress of those parents.
That is so true. Well, the average age of brides is 25.3, and the average age of grooms is 26.9. Why is it that the grooms are older than the brides?
Let's not get into that topic.
That's a good idea. With premarital counseling and endless advice, I'll definitely tell you from friends and relatives, how many times is it that conversations and advice are centered around legacy?
You know, it seems that not enough. You know, you talk about the dresses, you talk about buying that house and the white picket fence, but you don't spend time on legacy.
No, not at all. And it's a very important and vital conversation, but it's never talked about. You know what? Today we're going to do that. Join us on the couch.
So, regardless of what parental legacy was left for you, it's really up to you to create the legacy that you are living for your children. So when we come back, we're going to take an in-depth look at that. We'll have some special guests a little later on the show.
See you when we get back. How do you define freedom? Is it health? The ability to call a board-certified physician 24/7, 365 days a year. The ability to eliminate all future copays. Is it wealth? Cut your years to mortgage payoff by more than half and save hundreds and thousands in interest on mortgage, car, and other loans. Is it the gift of college scholarships for every child? Earn guaranteed scholarships at more than 360 private colleges and universities in 45 states. Or simply, abundance, time freedom, the perfect opportunity at the right time. It's all of these and so much more. We are looking for leaders, and freedom is calling. Join the Trivesta movement. If you would like to submit questions or topics for the show, send us an email. Visit couchtimewithsonya.com. Welcome back. For those of you who tuned in last week and you were on our social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram, you joined in on great discussions, and you kind of got a chance to meet our families a little bit. We talk about our families all the time and the traditions that we live, and also we talked about parental legacy.
You know, those traditions like tamales.
And the sweets that my mom loves to cook that we love to eat. And today we have some special guests that are right here on the set with us, and we're excited to introduce them. My husband, Bradford Lowe Sr., is here on the set with us today. Thanks for being on the set, baby.
My pleasure.
And my best friend, my husband, my soulmate, my riding partner, because we love them Harleys, Roel Cortez Jr.
We're going to have some good conversation with
What's
these
that?
guys today. You just have to know them. Well, you know, I met the love of my life 28 years ago, and man, I tell you, we're married. We now have 3 children and a handsome grandson. But we really never talked about legacy. We never sat and really had an in-depth conversation about legacy when we first got married. It wasn't until we grew a little older that we started having those conversations and realizing the importance of legacy, right, babe?
That's right.
But we decided, especially after having a grandson, that legacy was truly important. And, the things about we became one. We were two, but we became one. So our legacies joined together.
I think you do a really good job for those of us that are your friends and know you outside of this and see you, that you put one another first. And I love that Roel and I have learned to put one another first. That wasn't always the case. I know in our first few years, we didn't quite do that.
And I also, the vows we took seriously, for richer, for poor.
Sickness and in health, till death do us part. Wow, doesn't that sound a lot like?
Financial legacy.
Right.
Wow.
So how this is handled really depends on that PMS legacy. That till death do us part is that lifelong relational legacy. As we stated earlier, this is not something we take lightly. I know you don't take it lightly either. It's just really a big part of who we are and the financial legacy that we're leaving our children.
Yes, Brad, he's a retired police officer now, reinstated police officer. He's come out of retirement. But he worked tirelessly, to earn a living for our family. And he did it, and he always made sure that he was taking care of us so that we had a financial legacy, just as I know Royal does too.
In our case, Royal went back to school after being in the military and making sure he earned that degree so that he could leave a stronger, better financial legacy for our children. So let's get started on these questions.
Yes.
Brad,
First,
as head of household and being the man in your home, what advice would you give to young men today regarding the creation of their financial legacy? When should they start their plan?
As soon as they find employment, I would suggest them to start a savings. Don't live beyond your means, and budget. Set a budget.
It's that word again, Sonja.
I know. That's the word I really don't like. Let's just be honest. I don't like the word budget, but it works. And we need it. But I had to learn that, right, babe?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't do well in the beginning on the budget.
She's still learning, Brad?
She's still learning. She's doing better.
Thanks.
She's gotten better.
Royal, what would you say is the most challenging aspect of creating a financial legacy for your family?
For me, unfortunately, it was the fact that I didn't have anyone that taught me how to establish a financial legacy and how important it was. I grew up in a family that worked really hard just to make ends meet. And what I learned from that was that we lived paycheck to paycheck. And so I felt like I was kind of stuck in that. And so I had to learn, I had to make better choices and get a better understanding of what it meant to not just live for the day, but also save and plan for the future. And not just my future, but my family's future. And that was tough because I didn't have that example. So I believe we need to do a better job of making sure that our kids understand how important it is to establish a financial legacy and what it means for them, their future, and for the future of their kids and their families. So,
As a wife, I think I can confirm that those are things that we made sure that were a big part of what we taught our children. We can look back at our budget from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and tell you exactly what we spent and when we spent it. And that was so that we could pass that along to the generations coming behind us.
Did you hear that? Budget, to the point that they could go back 10 years. I want to commend the both of you, because that honestly says you put a system in place. Right, babe? You put a system in place to follow. So commendable. Awesome. On the subject of PMS legacy, we've been talking about psychological, moral, spiritual values and beliefs. How it establishes and forms a foundation psychologically. What are we doing to speak life into our children? And then morally, what are we teaching them as far as their morals, standing up for what they believe is right? And then spiritually, also, we're a Christian household, as well as we know that you are as well, teaching them those foundational principles of living for Christ. And I would honestly say, guys, from a male perspective, what would you add? What has been the basis of you setting that foundation for your families? Either one of you.
well, I would say for me it was, and I understand the P, the M, and the S, and I think that establishing values and morals, I think for the morality piece, for the moral piece of that, and the spiritual, I think that that has a lot to do with it, you know, establishing a foundation of a godly home from our perspective. But for me, I think the psychological piece is probably one that I feel strongly about, because I feel like growing up, I didn't get that psychological boost that I should have from my parents, from my family. They were so busy working to meet ends meet, like I said earlier, that they didn't really have a lot of time to talk to me and tell me that I could be anything, that I could do anything, and they didn't tell me that I couldn't. But I think that sometimes psychologically, the things that we don't say matter just as much as the things that we do say. And so I think that we need to make sure that not only we make sure that we tell our kids that they can do whatever they want to do, that, and that we set that example, but that we understand that when we're not saying these things, it's just as important that when we are saying them. And it could be a hindrance instead of a positive thing for a child or for a kid growing up in that kind of environment.
On the subject of PMS legacy, those psychological, moral, spiritual values and beliefs that are established and they form the foundation upon which your family stands, what would you say from a male perspective? What would you add to that?
I would say that the spiritual aspect of it should be the most important part to that, because if you're grounded spiritually, then your psychological and moral issues would line up.
That's good.
So I would say spiritual would be the most important part to that.
That's good input. How about you?
You know, I think that's fantastic and absolutely true. But for me, from my perspective, when I think about, you know, the foundation, the legacy of the psychological piece and how it impacted me, I always think back to, you know, I grew up in a household that, you know, parents were always working, trying to make ends meet. I talked about paycheck to paycheck. So there wasn't a lot of time spent with them telling me, hey, when you grow up, you can do whatever you want. You can be whatever you want to be. You know, whatever it takes, we'll make sure that we help you get there. There wasn't a lot of that. So from that perspective, psychologically, what I heard in the lack of them telling me these things, what I heard was, you know what, we don't have the money. You know, we can't send you to college. You can't be just anything you want to be. This is what we have, this is what we do, and this is what you will do. So I thought to myself, it's like, you know, when I have my kids, I want to make sure that I spend the time telling them these things, because I also feel that if you don't spend the time telling your kids what they can accomplish, that the lack of words, that if they don't hear it, it's just as important. It's setting, I think it's what it's telling them, without you saying it, is, you know, you're limited in what you can do. So psychologically, that impacted me quite a bit, and it took me, I think, a longer time to become the successful person that God has blessed me with, you know, to be today. But it took some hard work, because I was brought up in a situation where, because they weren't telling me these things, I always assumed, because I wasn't told, I always assumed that, hey, we can't afford for you to go to college. You can't do just about anything that you want to do. You're limited. You know, we work in farms, we work in manufacturing, and that's what you'll do. That's what I heard. They weren't saying these things, but that's what I heard, because they weren't telling me otherwise. So psychologically, I thought that was very impactful to me. So I had to make sure that I did it differently with my children and change that legacy.
You know, Sonja had her parents on in the previous show, and one of the things she said was they really taught her that she could do anything, but whatever it was, that she should be the best at it. So
Yes.
I think she used the example of, if she was going to be a basket weaver, she was to be the best basket weaver that she could possibly be.
Thank you for sharing that today. I know that many of you may be sitting there and hearing exactly what Roel said. And man, if that's you, please take the nuggets that he shared today and take them to heart, because it definitely does make a difference. You heard exactly what he said, is that what you do not say really does matter as well. So as Dedelia, it's customary for our culture, what is it about the women and that name, of getting that last name?
You know, today it seems that you get married, you let go of the maiden name, but more and more, that's changing.
Yes.
That's changing. So this week, we're going to expand that topic. We're really going to take it beyond today's couch on our website, on social media, Facebook, Instagram. We're going to talk more about that. So be sure to join in. Give us some of your feedback. Let us know what you feel about it.
We're asking, what's in a name? There's a whole lot in a name.
That's that relational legacy that we've been discussing.
Exactly. We'll be right back.
CEO Jalea Davis is making history by becoming the youngest African American female to own a television station in the nation. Along with her colleague, President Crystal Holmes, these women are becoming a part of the 1.3% African American television station ownership. Get ready for Eyeconic Television, an all-new channel coming to your TV on KVVV Channel 15.10, covering Houston's local inspiration, entertainment, health, wellness, fitness, family, visual artists, comedians, and more. Streaming 24/7 on EyeconicTelevision.com. Be sure to stay tuned for the latest and greatest on Eyeconic Television, where everyone can be iconic.
If you would like to submit questions or topics for the show, send us an email. Visit couchtimewithsonya.com.
Welcome back. Thanks for being with us. In the previous segment, we were talking about name and how that relates to that relational legacy. We're going to take that a little bit further. I have a question for you, Roel. What does it mean to be a Cortez?
Well, that's a deep question. But for me personally, it's understanding all the things that my family has done previous to me, my predecessors, if you will, my ancestors, all the things that they've done to get our family to the point where we're at today. So all the hard work they put into it, the education, or what they learned, what they brought to the table to ensure that our family was progressing. And then taking that and using that as a springboard to ensure that my family, we have a higher starting point in our legacy because of them, but I also have the responsibility to continue to build upon that and leave a better legacy, a better Cortez legacy for my kids kids' kids. So.
I love that. On top of that, and complete side note, to me, Cortez means some handsome men.
Good plug, sis. Good plug.
So, Brad, what does it mean to be a Lowe?
You should have a lot of pride in your last name. You know, my father used to tell me before I left the house, remember your last name. You know, and so I do the same thing with my kids. You know, when they're going out or whatever on the town, I tell them, remember your last name. So they know what that means. You know, it should be some integrity there. People should speak highly of you because you're low, and so you should know how to act when you're out there in the public view. You know, because your name should matter. You should not bring any embarrassment to your last name.
So, adding to that, what if someone doesn't have a good last name? What if someone has that last name that is negative? People tie it to something that's bad.
I think that's a great follow-up question. Unfortunately, there's many kids out there, there's many people out there that have grown up not understanding what the legacy is of their last name because maybe they didn't know their father, they didn't know the ancestry behind it. For whatever reason, none of them their fault. So they shouldn't feel any less of a person because of it. You know, as much as Brad and I have had great foundations for Cortezes and Lows, I know that just because you didn't have that doesn't mean that that completely defines you. You know, a name will not define you. You can change your last name, but if you don't change your behavior, it won't really matter. So the name really doesn't define who you truly are. It's what you do as a person, as a man, if you will, from our perspective. So if you don't have that, start building it. No one can stop you. No one can tell you otherwise. It's up to you to make sure that you're leaving a better name legacy for your kids so that they can have the experience that Brad and I had of remember your name. When you go out, remember you're a Cortez, remember you're Low. Start that for your family now. If you didn't have it, there's no excuse for you not to build that for your kids today.
The legacy of the spouse is deeply interwoven with the offspring they produce because the spousal legacy actually lays the foundation for the legacy for our children that they'll carry for the rest of their lives. Honestly, Brad and I, we definitely, we take honor and pride in being parents, as I know that you do as well.
And grandparents.
Yes, we talk about the grandbabies. We love them so. As parents, there's absolutely nothing that we wouldn't do for our children and our grandchildren.
For sure.
From the time that we've been awaiting those little bundles of joy to planning all the aspects of their life, from decorating the nursery
Or
to,
not.
yeah, that's true too, or planning for college, marriage, and even more. But what about the legacy considerations that relates to our children?
So Brad, Roel, what advice or what do you want to leave the viewers with in regards to the legacy they leave for their children?
Make sure it's a spiritual legacy, inheritance, because you don't want your kids to have to struggle through life. You know, don't leave bills to your kids. You know, so you want to leave a nice inheritance for your family.
That's great. Roel?
I love that. I also think that as a parent, I want to make sure that their starting point in legacy is farther along than mine was. So like you said, there's nothing I wouldn't do for my kids, and I think that starts with making sure that they have better opportunities than I did. And I have to work and make sure that I instill the values and the spiritual and the moral things that we talk about and the psychological things. So at the end of that, it is, as a parent, I feel that we want to make sure that they start off, they have a better opportunity than we ever had. I think that's important.
It's a great thing. You know, my father was a farm worker his entire life. Very proud of that man, but he wanted better for me. He wanted me to start off in a better place than where he was. No shame in what he did, but he wanted to make sure that I went to school, that I had goals that I was going after, that he told me, you can do anything.
See, that's wrapping PMS legacy
Right.
all into one. And I think it's just amazing. And we have some kids that are adults that didn't get to join us on the set today. And we have some statements from our kids, and it's actually our sons. And I am proud to be able to read some of the statements from our sons. So you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so the question we asked them was in regards to relational legacy. And the same question we posed to them was, what does it mean to be, in my case, a Cortez? Michael said, and Michael is away from home, own apartment, down the street, but living his own life. And I love that he shared. For me, being a Cortez means not being bound by your past. It means looking towards a brighter future, despite what roadblocks may be there may be. It also means being able to pave my own way forward through hard work. So we really instilled
Awesome.
that work ethic in him.
That's fantastic.
That is fantastic. I want to commend the both of you. How beautiful, right, babe?
Absolutely.
That's just beautiful.
And Jacob, who's away at college, she's our last one. Go Longhorns. Hook 'em horns, is that what we say? His words were, being a Cortez means putting God's will first in my life, in my school, my future work, my future family, finances, and so on. It also means knowing and respecting my heritage and culture, even if I don't practice every tradition.
That is so beautiful. So see, when I tell you that legacy matters, you live your life before your children. You don't just say what you want them to do, you live it before them. And the Cortezes have definitely done that. And I pray that you're doing the same as well. Well, we posed that same question to our son, who carries the Lowe name as well. And I'll definitely read what our son, Bradford Lowe Jr., had to say. Being the only son and the oldest out of my siblings, I had to be the leader, the man of the house when my father was not there. My parents taught me a lot, very strict at times, but now that I'm grown, I'm very appreciative toward their discipline. Without their guidance, I wouldn't be the successful man that I am today. The name matters. So much wisdom and leadership that was taught me drives me to be the person I am today. A great father and provider for my family. That's one of the most important lessons I've learned from my parents. My father always taught and talked about leaving a legacy. Growing up, he used to tell me, when I would act up, if you want to live the life, then you must live it now. It's not just your own, it's an investment into the legacy forever. He says, I'm forever grateful for all the wisdom and the love my parents blessed me with.
Wow.
That is absolutely beautiful. Tears me up.
So does that just touch your heart to know that what you have been teaching them this whole life, it's sticking?
Absolutely.
Yes, very much so. There was a second part of question that said, in reference to that, he gave an example. Y'all remember The Rock? Do you remember The Rock, the wrestler?
You smell what the Rock is
Come
cooking?
on,
Yes.
there you go. He made a comment to that. He said, growing up besides my father, I used to idolize the wrestler The Rock. The Rock used to get on stage and always use his name at the beginning of a speech,
Right.
which was true. For example, he would say, The Rock is the most electrifying man in the sports entertainment. He was so proud of being The Rock. You couldn't mention wrestling without mentioning his name. Pretty powerful there. Growing up, I used to do the same thing, but instead of saying The Rock, I used to say my name. I wanted to be known and to let people know how great it is and how much I love being alone. My father always told me to remember your name and what it means. Hands down, being alone is the best thing in the world.
Wow.
Pretty awesome.
That's amazing. You must be a very proud mama.
I truly am. And our daughter, Connie, who's away at college, just like yours, it was so awesome that she said, Mom, having my last name Love means everything. Why? Because Mom and Dad, y'all are the ones who gave me that name. I said, oh. And you have to know Connie. Oh.
I
Love
know
you, Connie.
Connie. I know Connie, and you're right. Aww.
What I want you to know today is that I hope that what we've shared today here on Couch Time, you got the opportunity to not only hear from us, but that you look deep within inside your family and your legacy and what you're leaving. Grab your family, grab them in close, sit down and talk to them, because legacy matters.
Do you ever find yourself asking these questions? Does my work matter? Am I making a positive impact? Does what I do mean anything to anyone? Am I really making a difference? So I want you to know you're not alone. I have asked the same questions, and I must confess, I sometimes fall prey to the lie that my work does not matter. Yes, I said the lie. I become discouraged in one of two ways. On some days, I feel that what I'm doing does not matter, often because it does not measure up to maybe someone else's work. On other days, I feel that how I'm working is falling short. I either have too much energy to quit or not enough to start. Can you relate? Whatever you do, it matters. As an inspirational speaker and an embrace coach, I essentially write and I speak often. Some of it is good, but some of it is not too good, especially when I'm comparing myself to others. There are many speakers and coaches, and some they have more training than I do, and many more who are simply even more interactive than I am. But when I witness some people's speeches, I feel sometimes that mine doesn't compare to theirs. And these thought patterns are not healthy. Comparison is the thief of joy, and we have to stop it. We all have a part to play, and we are all part of the body. Are you an eye, an ear, a foot? Whatever you are, you play a critical role. And what you do matters. And it matters to not just you, but others around you. No matter how society views your current career path, be it small or magnificent, it is important. Some of us scrub toilets, some wash floors. Some of us work in offices, some of us cook and serve food, some lead and manage, and some organize and assist. Some raise children at home. Doesn't matter, they're all important. And I want you to know they're all a blessing to you and others. Maybe it's for your coworkers. Maybe that blessing is for your students or your children or your spouse. You are doing what you're doing for a purpose, and it's important. How do you do it? It matters even the more. Did you roll out of bed today and you dreaded something? Maybe going to church, going to work, cleaning. You know what? The motivation that you have you lost it? Maybe to do that task that you've been waiting to do. I want you to know that it can change. It's easy to get burnt out on our jobs. Sometimes society deems things to be fulfilling, but they may not be for us. Every one of us has felt this weight on our shoulders, and that task sometimes becomes difficult. Sometimes it's humiliating, or sometimes it seems like it's out of our league. Do you ever feel burnout? Have you ever cut corners or shortcuts to get things done faster? I know I have. But you know what? It's really what lies in our heart, the attitude in which we do our work. Whether you're working hard in the kitchen or you're working at a headquarters, expect excellence. If we approach our jobs with this perspective that our work is not just for us, but it's for someone else, then we will do our jobs with greater passion and with greater attention to detail and more willingness. Approach every task that you have with an offering of love. I pray that this message today encourages you and encourages your heart. Take great comfort in knowing no matter how small the task is, do it with excellence, and let's do it together. I want you to know that if you'd like to work with me, Sonja Lowe, your Embrace Coach, please visit my website, sonjalowe.com. And there's a spot on there for you to register for a free Embrace call. I'd love to take the time to embrace you. Let's do it together. God bless you. And then there was life. Born to color outside the lines. Born for such a time as this. You showed up on the planet to produce a dream. You, yes you, were born with purpose, with words. Friends, imagine that your dreams can become your reality by the words you speak. It all starts today. It starts with you. Creation, formation, transformation, all begin with change. The battle is in your mind, but your voice is your weapon. Speak life, believe, prosperity, creative, daring. The best way to predict your future is to create it. Your future is unwritten. Let's begin writing today. Your words create your world.
I'm Marlon Wilson, and you're watching Grind Time with Nightwolf Productions.
If you got a plan, just do it. Don't let anything stop you.
I'm Lauren Tolot, and you're watching Grind Time with Nightwolf Productions.
Live poor, poor, poor for the first full year as an entrepreneur. Probably 2.
I am Chloe Cook, and you're watching Grind Time with Nightwolf Productions.
There is no limit, as long as I'm willing to fail enough times.
Hi, I'm Samir Freedy.
You're watching Grind Time
with Nightwolf Productions.
You want to be the best, you gotta be a little bit crazy.
Start where you are, and start today.
I am CJ, and you're watching Grind Time with Nightwolf Productions.
Go find that passion and go for it.
I'm Avi, and you're watching Grind Time with Nightwolf Productions.
I always tell myself I'm gonna win, like this is gonna happen.
Stop settling for an illusion of success. Stop settling for an illusion of entrepreneurship.
And keep grinding.
If you would like to be a guest or advertise your business on Couch Time with Sonja, I would love to hear from you. Email me. Visit couchtimewithsonya.com.
Welcome back. We are joined on the set today with some special guests. I want to introduce you to my youngest daughter, our last daughter at home, Beyonce Lowe. So excited that she's on the set with us today.
Hello.
And we also have another handsome gentleman on the set. And how about do you introduce your guest?
This is my grandson, my heart. This is my boy. This is Easton. Say hi to everyone, Easton.
Hey.
It's so awesome. It's awesome because we get to talk to the younger generation all about legacy today. So Beyonce, I have a few questions for you, baby. Let me actually start by saying that it's so important, as I stated in the first part of our series, to really sit down and discuss legacy with not only the older generation, but you, the younger generation. So how would you say that your father and I have actually helped you to understand and learn a little bit about finances and having a financial legacy?
Well, in our household, we have budgets, and we learn how to budget. Y'all give me my own money as well, so I learned how to budget and not spend as much because as a teenager, I go out and I like to spend money, you know. So I think budgeting has really been a key factor in our household as a financial standpoint.
Great job, Beyonce. I love that you're so involved in your financial planning, and that's all due to your parents' financial legacy and what they're leaving in you. My child was unable to be here, at least my oldest child. She and her husband are off doing, life. But they did share a message that I want to read to you, and I'm sorry for reading off the card, but I can't memorize all of this. The example that you and Dad have set are some pretty big shoes to fill. You not only have and continue to help and guide your kids, but your grandkids as well as those other family members that continue to need you. Personally, I'm not sure how you'll do it sometimes. The habits and practices you have taught and continue to teach will be ingrained into Easton's head as well as his children. Your example of success will be around long after you are gone. The success of our future generations will have you to thank for it.
That is beautiful. They might not have been here today, but I can definitely tell they touch your heart.
For sure.
What a beautiful legacy. And Beyonce, we have a second question for you. As we were talking earlier about PMS, psychological, moral, and spiritual legacy, we tease about that PMS word all the time. What would you say, morally and spiritually, how have Dad and I helped to leave a legacy for you?
I believe morally, y'all taught me to always stand up for myself in any situation, and regardless of what other people are doing. So, like, for example, at school, being a high school student, I get pressured a lot to do things that aren't of my character. So, maybe skipping school. I'll get asked to skip school, but in my character, that's not what I do. So I'm not afraid to say no, or like I'm not ashamed to say no, that's not what I'm going to do, but y'all can go ahead and do that. So morally, y'all have always taught me to stand up for myself. So spiritually, y'all modeled that for me, but personally, I took that as a personal stance because a spiritual walk with God is very personal, and it is for an individual to accept for themselves. So spiritually, if it doesn't feel right with my spirit, then I personally will not engage in that activity.
That's a great answer, baby.
It's very mature of you. Many of us struggle with that as adults, yet you're doing it here as a teen. Way to go.
So proud of her.
Well, you should be.
And also, my oldest daughter, Connie, who is not able to be here today, it's just a beautiful thing to know that our kids are actually modeling the things that we have taught them at an early age. I would say this is so exciting. The younger generation sitting on the set with the older generation. We pray that you're doing the same thing in the comfort of your home, sitting with the younger generation. We are called, right, Delia?
Absolutely.
The older to teach the younger. It is awesome talking about legacy. Continue this conversation in your home, and then join us on our social media networks at Couch Time with Sonja, and that's Sonja with a J, on Facebook and Instagram. We will have a continued conversation in reference to this topic. But we want you to join us next week. We have an awesome topic. Join us next week here on the couch, where we will begin our next series entitled Sensational Rejuvenation Through Self-Care. See you next week. This week's Your Story Matters is a tribute to a special man. In closing out our legacy series, we want to honor Pedro Amaro Gonzalez, our co-host Delia Gonzalez Cortez's father. He is in his heavenly home and is still making an impact today because of the life he lived. When times were tough, he was at his best. Beneath his calm, the sheen of steel, a man of his word, no promise ever faltered. His character of honor to each man he did reveal. He was a quiet hero, a man of subtle strength. Many ways a wonder, though perfect he was not. Always gracious and giving, forever our flaws somehow forgot. His shining smile, his wit and his wisdom become precious memories profound in our heart. Known to all and respected by many. His life a vivid painting, a masterful work of art. He was a giving man, always foremost to help, giving to many, no need ever forsaken. All who knew him observed his giving. The talents he exhibited became his secret fortune. A special poem, The Broken Chain. We little knew that day God was going to call your name.
In life, we loved you dearly. In death, we do the same. It broke our hearts to lose you. You did not go alone, for part of us went with you the day God called you home. You left us beautiful memories. Your love is still our guide. And although we cannot see you, you are always at our side. Our family chain is broken and nothing seems the same. But as God calls us one by one, the chain will link again. Love, Delia and the Gonzalez family. Pedro Amaro Gonzalez, I personally thank you because your story matters.